I've been shooting in RAW with the iPhone 16 Pro a lot these past 4 months, and when I say in RAW, I mean Beta RAW, which is actual RAW, not Pro RAW. And the images are incredibly sharp. Fine details and textures look fantastic, noise is minimal, and dynamic range is excellent. I've got loads of scope to push and pull the tones and adjust the colours. So in my little world of iPhone RAW photography, the 16 Pro delivers. But so did my 15 Pro Max last year, and my 13 Pro Max before that, and my 12 Pro, and my 10R, etc. And I've been thinking, surely the RAW files from these phones don't look as good as I remember. There's got to be some rose-tinted glasses going on there. So just how much has the RAW image quality improved over the past 5 years? Well, to find out, I've done 3 shot-for-shot photo shoots with the current Pro iPhone, the 16 Pro, and the first Pro iPhone from 2019, the 11 Pro. And here are the results. The 11 Pro is on the left. Or is it on the right? I know, I was surprised as well. I honestly couldn't believe that the 11 Pro's main camera was this good. How is it possible that this 5-year-old iPhone with a camera system so much smaller than the 16 Pro's can produce RAW files that apparently look just as good? The answers lie in the specs and the metadata. But you know, after 3 photo shoots in the British winter weather, lugging this enormous bag around, I'm really glad and relieved that I could analyse the results in the ultimate comfort that is the FlexiSpot Recliner Lotus XC6. Spending days at my desk analysing photos and editing videos always leads to the same thing: shifting, squirming, and eventually going numb. But the FlexiSpot Recliner Lotus changes everything. It's a multifunctional recliner designed for the ultimate relaxing experience. Spacious and supportive, it lets you sit however you like. Upright, sideways, cross-legged, and when you're ready, you can effortlessly extend your legs and recline. So whether you're working on your laptop like me, reading, watching TV, or taking a nap, it adapts to whatever you need. It also gently rocks and silently swivels. And this dynamic, stimulating movement is like a reset button for my workspace, helping me stay focused during long editing sessions. So thank you FlexiSpot for making this video and the next ones a lot more comfortable to make. Now, the 11 Pro's main camera has a 12 megapixel sensor, while the 16 Pro has a larger 48 megapixel sensor. But when you shoot in Beta RAW, the 16 Pro sensor uses pixel binning, which combines 4 smaller individual pixels into one larger effective pixel, resulting in the same 12 megapixel resolution as the 11 Pro. But the 16 Pro's image sensor and its pixels are roughly 3 times larger in area than the 11 Pro's, and on top of that, its main camera lens has about 2.6 times more aperture area. And these factors give the 16 Pro sensor the potential to collect around 8 times more light overall, which could boost its maximum signal-to-noise ratio by a factor of around 2.8. And while signal-to-noise ratio alone doesn't determine image quality, it's a concrete figure we can look at when comparing images, and it gives us an insight into why the 11 Pro's results have been comparable so far. Exploring the EXIF data of these RAW files reveals that the 11 Pro's signal-to-noise ratio was 30.53, whereas the 16 Pro's signal-to-noise ratio was 30.65, which is just 0.4% better. And that's a really key point, and this is the answer to our question. Ideal conditions level the playing field. In every example I've shown so far, the image quality from the 11 Pro and 16 Pro looks identical because the bright conditions hide the limitations of the 11 Pro's smaller, older sensor, and they hide the advantages of the 16 Pro's larger, more advanced sensor, which leads to a new question. how do you see the 16 Pro's advantages? Well, let's look at two images with lower light values and more shadows in them. In these examples, the 11 Pro's signal-to-noise ratio is 27.34, whereas the 16 Pro's is 30.25, which is 11% better. So we're moving in the right direction, and if we lift the shadows, we can indeed see that the 16 Pro's image is cleaner, and the deeper the shadow, the better it looks. Now let's take it to the extreme. In these examples, both phones are set to ISO 640, which may not sound too high, but in iPhone RAW photography land, ISO 640 may as well be ISO 6400. And as predicted, the 16 Pro's image is a lot cleaner. In these low light examples, the 16 Pro's signal-to-noise ratio is 22.68, and the 11 Pro's is 16.99, meaning the 16 Pro's signal-to-noise ratio is 33.5% better. So to answer our latest question, the lower the light and the higher the ISO, the better the 16 Pro's RAW files will look compared to its older siblings. Personally, I don't shoot in these conditions, but I do enjoy using light and shadow, so I've definitely benefited from cleaner shadows. Plus, cleaner high ISOs will give you an extra hour or so of shooting when the sun gets low. Okay, so the 16 Pro's main sensor handles shadows better, but what about the highlights? Larger pixels aren't only good for low light, they also help to preserve details and tones in bright areas too. Well, both the 16 Pro and the 11 Pro are excellent at recovering highlights. Here's the 11 Pro recovering by one stop, no problem. In this shot, we can recover the skin by just under a stop, and then take over with the highlight slider to bring back the sky. And in this example, we need around 1.7 stops for the skin, but the sky keeps coming back even past 3 stops. And naturally the 16 Pro can do the same thing. In fact, in terms of highlight recovery, the only difference I've found is a very subtle one at the extreme end. In this shot, both images were overexposed by 2 stops, but when we recover them, Katie's skin in the 11 Pro image looks a little pale. She almost looks ill because the red channel is clipping. Ever so slightly, in fact, let's be honest, barely even noticeable highlight recovery is probably not going to get top billing during one of Apple's keynotes. For me, the main improvements that I notice and appreciate every single shoot are the shallower depth of field and the more versatile focal lengths. I love isolating my subject with depth of field, but it's impossible to do that with the 11 Pro because its sensor and aperture are that much smaller. And there's no better iPhone camera to isolate your subject with than the 5x telephoto. The 11 Pro's 2x telephoto is actually the sharper and cleaner of the 2 telephotos, but I'm willing to trade that in for this gloriously compressed look with enhanced bokeh. I mainly shoot portraits with my iPhone, and this is the look that I want. And as for the ultra-wide camera, well, the 11 Pro's ultra-wide camera can't shoot in RAW, so we don't get a comparison. That said though, what a fantastic piece of kit the 11 Pro is. And with these shoots, I now see and I understand where the sensor and lens improvements are. As much as I love RAW though, I've also been shooting with both devices in processed formats like ProRAW and Hike. Because sometimes I focus on RAW as if it's the be-all and end-all of iPhone photography, and I ignore everything else my iPhone's cameras can do. And since my RAW versus ProRAW video is now over 3 years old, I'd like to explore that side of things again. In the meantime though, thank you so much for watching. Pagranshi Ozibuna.